The book of Isaiah is one of the most powerful and mysterious writings in the entire Bible, and many believe it is also the most terrifying. From its opening chapters, Isaiah delivers visions that shake the soul, warnings that thunder across history, and revelations so shocking that they still leave readers trembling even thousands of years later. To understand why this book carries such weight, we need to step into Isaiah's world, a world filled with corruption, rebellion, and a nation drifting far away from the God who had chosen them. Isaiah lived during the 8th century BC, a time when the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were surrounded by enemies and torn apart by their own sin. Instead of living in faithfulness, the people turned to idols, their leaders grew corrupt, and their cities became filled with injustice. Into this darkness, God called Isaiah to speak his words. And what Isaiah saw and proclaimed was not just for his time. It was a message that would echo across generations, carrying both terror and hope. Right at the beginning of the book, Isaiah confronts the people with a chilling vision of judgment. He describes their land as desolate, their cities burning, their fields stripped bare. This was not only a warning for ancient Judah, it was a picture of what happens when a nation abandons the living God. Over and over, Isaiah proclaimed that kingdoms rise and fall, but no power on earth can escape the justice of the Lord. He names Babylon, Moab, Damascus, Egypt, Tyre, and many others, declaring that their pride, their arrogance would lead them into ruin. The terrifying reality was clear. No matter how mighty a nation seemed, it could not stand against the holiness of God. But Isaiah's vision went even further than the fate of local kingdoms. Again and again, he spoke about the day of the Lord, a time not limited to one people or one empire, but a global event when God himself would rise in power to shake the earth. In one of the most haunting passages, Isaiah describes the stars of the heavens fading away, the sun refusing to shine, the moon losing its light. He declares that the world itself will be punished for its evil, that human pride will be crushed, and that the earth will tremble, torn from its place. Imagine hearing that in a world already unstable with war and invasion, it would have struck terror into every heart. And even now, the thought of creation itself collapsing under God's judgment remains one of the most sobering prophecies in all of Scripture. And yet, in the midst of these visions of wrath, Isaiah received a revelation no one could have expected. Centuries before it happened, he spoke of a figure unlike any other, a servant chosen by God. This servant would not conquer with armies or weapons, but would suffer in silence. In chapter 53, Isaiah paints a picture that still astonishes scholars today, a man despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, pierced for our transgressions, and crushed for our iniquities. He writes that the punishment which brings peace would fall upon him, and by his wounds, others would be healed. For Isaiah's original audience, this must have been a mystery, but for us, it is unmistakable. This prophecy was fulfilled in Jesus Christ, and that realization is terrifying in its own way, because it shows us just how heavy the burden of sin truly is. That the Son of God himself had to suffer and die to save humanity. Still, Isaiah does not leave us in fear alone. Alongside judgment and suffering, he also reveals glimpses of a restored creation. He speaks of a time when nations will no longer raise swords against one another, when weapons of war will be turned into tools for harvest, when the wolf will lie down with the lamb, and peace will cover the earth. These promises show that God's plan was never only destruction, but renewal, a future where justice and mercy reign together. It is this combination, visions of terrifying judgment and breathtaking hope, that makes Isaiah's book unlike any other. So why is Isaiah called the most terrifying book in the Bible? Because it reveals the full reality of who God is. It shows us his holiness that cannot tolerate sin, his power that shakes nations and even the heavens, and his plan of salvation that required the suffering of the Messiah. It terrifies us because it strips away every illusion of human strength and reminds us that without God, there is only destruction. And yet, it transforms us by showing that with God, there is redemption, restoration, and eternal peace. Isaiah's words are not just history. They are a warning and a promise for every generation. They confront us with the seriousness of judgment, the depth of sin, and the incredible hope of salvation. That is why this book continues to grip readers even today, speaking with the same urgency it did nearly 3,000 years ago. And now, I want to hear from you. When you think about the book of Isaiah, which strikes you more, the terror of its warnings or the hope of its promises? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to continue exploring the hidden prophecies and revelations of the Bible, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon, because there are many more mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The book of Isaiah warns us, but it also prepares us. And the question we must all